Hello guys, welcome to another video. In this video, we would be seeing on how to trigger the Lambda synchronously and asynchronously, and what exactly is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous triggering of Lambda. So, there is an ideal use case for Lambda. We drop a file and the Lambda gets triggered, at least for the data engineer's point of view. So, that's called asynchronous. Why that is called asynchronous is like we just trigger the Lambda, but we don't capture the response or the return statement which Lambda is returning. That's why it is called asynchronous. In asynchronous, we don't capture it. In synchronous, we trigger the Lambda and we capture the response or the return type which the Lambda returns. So let's see both. But what we do with the dropping a file and then Lambda getting triggered is asynchronous. So and to show you the asynchronous and synchronous difference very good, I'll go to my terminal and I'll trigger the Lambda, and so there we'll be capturing the response. So we'll understand what exactly is the difference between asynchronous and synchronous. So I'm in my this directory. In my directory, I already have response I have payload.jsons, which is nothing but just a name chinaredi. Like in my previous video, I have created a lambda which just expects one argument, right? We know we take the arguments from this event variable, and here we are just returning this piece of code, right? So let's trigger lambda from my AWS CLI both synchronously and asynchronously. But to trigger the lambda from AWS CLI, we have to first install AWS CLI. So to install AWS CLI in Mac, we use brew install AWS CLI, and once this is installed, we have to just do AWS configure. If you see here, I have this AWS configure. So when I do AWS configure, when I click on enter, it will ask me about my account's access key, secret access key and all, and we need to configure it so that it can access my AWS account. So when I do this AWS configure, if you see, it already has this value. If you don't have, we have to get it from IAM and we have to do it. So how do we get it? Go to IAM. We need to have a user, any one user. Without user, we can't access AWS CLI. So if you go to users, I created one of my user with the name CPR. And if you go here, if you go to security credentials, here this is where we create the access keys. If you want, you can just create one more access key as well for CLI. And I understand. And then next, any tag if you want, create access key. This is the access key which we have got. You can just download it and click on done. But I don't want it because I already have it. So if you see, this is what I have downloaded, and this is what I'll be giving here. I already have it 3G67, so I'm giving again secret access key which we get when we download the secret credentials. That's it. And your default region is, for me, if you go here, if I go to my lambda, it's Northern Virginia, which is US East 1. If I come here, it is US East 1. I don't have to enter because I already have that value, and the format is JSON. That's it. So this is how you have to first install AWS CLI and then do configure. So once we configure, we can trigger the lambda from our local. Okay. So now to trigger the lambda, this is a small piece of code I have. If you see, AWS Lambda invoke -- function name, the name of the function, invocation type, synchronous or asynchronous is being decided by this value. When you use request response, it is synchronous. When you use event, it is asynchronous. So while doing the synchronous, you do capture the response. Where are you capturing the response? In this response.json. So I'll just give response5.json because it doesn't exist in my local. So now when I capture, if you do ls, if I don't have response5.json, right? So when I paste this, see, I have all this. The payload is nothing but the arguments which we have. I have showed you, right? Before cat payload I have done. It has the this particular key value pair, name and the name chinaredi it has. So now the response I am asking to capture in this particular JSON. That's it. And why we need this is like we are passing the input as a JSON format, right? So we have to tell lambda, by passing this argument, we are just telling lambda that I am passing a JSON argument. So use that JSON argument. That's the purpose. So when I execute this, if you see the status 200 has come, and so if I do ls, see response5.json is created, right? So when I do cat response5, if you see what is the output I got, status code, body, message, hello Chinna Reddy, welcome to AWS Lambda. So this is what we are passing, status code, body and all, right? The message is being coming to from this the greet method. So that's how we trigger the synchronous. That means we are able to capture the response. So now how do you trigger asynchronous? The same, the only difference which we do is the invocation type will be event. So when I execute this, let's see what we get here. And this is asynchronous. That means we just trigger and leave it. We don't want the output which we get from the lambda. We don't want get capture the return which lambda returns. Okay. So when I just execute this, so if you see the status code 202, that's it. So when I even go with to this response.json, I've used response.json only. When I execute, I did not get anything. That means we are not capturing anything, but we might have invoked it twice. So now let's go to CloudWatch logs and we can view it clearly. See, today is 19th. When I click on it, we should see 2 times it is getting triggered. Yes, it is triggered 2 times. If you see the first time is this one and the second time is this one. That's it. So this is how we trigger the lambda synchronously and asynchronously. The event type is asynchronous. So now if you go to configurations, if you see here, I'll explain you few things here. Function URL I'll explain in the next video, code signing, function URL and all. So if you see asynchronous executions, the maximum age of event. So if an event has occurred and if it's waiting in the queue and it will time out after 6 hours, that we can edit as well, how long you want to have it. So that's one thing. So now if you see general configurations, you can even edit this as well. So if you see these are the general configurations, timeout memory, the memory is 128. So as per the documentation, if you see, we can have up to 10,000 MB of memory max. And now if I go to lambda back again, the timeout is up to 15 minutes max. So if I go to the documentation again, if I click on timeout, the maximum timeout is 15 seconds, which is 900 seconds. The default is 3 seconds, which is what we have here, right? 3 seconds. So the lambda can run up to 15 minutes. Post 15 minutes, it will throw an error with timeout. So these are the few configurations which I wanted to show you. Environmental variables are also easy thing. You can add some key value pairs and you can access them inside the Python code. Let's assume bucket names. Bucket names for the production environment will be prod hyphen and all, right? For the dev it will be dev hyphen. So you can't change the lambda code for each environment. It should be constant across the environment. So those kind of variables we can access using environmental variables. We should not keep the IDs and passwords here, but just some kind of bucket names and some configurations. If you see, let me keep bucket, and here the value is prod bucket -1, and if I keep it like this and if I save it, I have this, right? And for dev I'll keep dev bucket1, and if in the code I can access it. If I go to my code now, if you see here, I can just do import os and os dot, see this one, os dot env of bucket. If you do, we'll get the bucket name. We can just bucket equal to. So this is how we can access the environment variables. These are the few configuration settings which I wanted to show you, majorly timeout, and then asynchronous invocation, what is the maximum age, and then the environmental variables. In the next videos, I'll show you what is function URL and all. That's it. Thank you so much for watching.